At a high temperature of 40 degrees, parents-in-law are afraid of electricity and are reluctant to turn on the air conditioner. Seeing that my baby was hot, my parents-in-law quickly put the baby in the refrigerator to cool down. When I opened the refrigerator, I found that the baby's face had already turned purple, and he had been frozen to death. I cried blindly and jumped into the river to commit suicide. When I opened my eyes again, I was reborn on the night before the baby died. 1. I turned on my mobile phone. Today is the beginning of July, the night before the baby was put in the refrigerator. The house is not ventilated, the weather is hot and dry, and the dogs at home keep sticking out their tongues. I watched my mother-in-law fanning a big fan. Her face turned red from the heat, and beads of sweat flowed down her cheeks to the ground, leaving sweat stains on her back. My mother-in-law saw that I was stunned and shouted at me, "Xiaoxia, come and fan me for a while." I pretended not to hear it, and turned to look at the baby lying on the bed. The baby's breath had begun to become weak. Obviously it was hot. Her little face had begun to turn red. I took off the baby's clothes and found that her whole body was covered with sunburn. I was a little flustered and wanted to find the remote control of the air conditioner, but I couldn't find it all over the house. It must have been hidden by my mother-in-law. I was a little depressed, and in addition to the hot weather, my anger suddenly came up. "Mom, Yuan is getting hot. Why don't you turn on the air conditioner?" My mother-in-law rolled her eyes at me and said strangely, "Don't this child have heat rash in the middle of summer? What's the matter? You're the only one who misses your child. Do you want to look at which one outside with the air conditioner on?" I looked out of the window, and the external air conditioners upstairs and downstairs were dripping. I opened the window and pulled my mother-in-law to look out of the window, with anger in my tone. "Look, every family has the air conditioner on. Why don't we turn it on?" This is the first time I've been angry with my mother-in-law. In the past, I thought that I could take a step back and open the sea and the sky. But now I think about it, I'm still wrong. Blindly forbearance will only make the other party gain inch by inch. 2. The mother-in-law stopped the fan in her hand, pouted her buttocks and looked out, and then looked up and down at me and said, "There is money at home, and women are all working. If it weren't for my son at home, I'm afraid it's hard for you to eat enough now, and you still want to blow the air conditioner. Why are you so pretentious?" The father-in-law also agreed and said, "Yes, Xiaoxia, the child can't get hot either. Now a fever can improve immunity. When you grow up, you will be in good health. Otherwise, you will blow the air conditioner. If you catch a cold, you will have to spend money." After saying that, he staggered Erlang's legs and showed a disgusted expression. "Well, you don't even give the remote control, do you? Then I'll find it myself." The tears in my eyes are not only I am worried about the baby, and I regret that I have fed the dog to this family in the past few years. This family is more and more strange. I searched the house, but I looked for the sofa, the TV cabinet, the bottom of the bed and the bookshelf, but I couldn't find the remote control. I began to go crazy and picked up the kitchen bowl and smashed it on the ground to vent my anger. My mother-in-law was so distressed that she patted her thigh and shouted at me, "You bitch, why don't you die after the loser smashed so many bowls?" My father-in-law also stopped me from falling, but how can I listen to him now? The temperature of 40 degrees is enough for adults to get heat stroke, let alone a child under 1 year old? Now, as long as the air conditioner is not turned on for a moment, the baby's life is threatened for a moment. Just as I picked up the last bowl, the remote control fell out of the bowl. I was ready to reach out and take the remote control as if I had seen a savior. Just as I was about to get the remote control, my mother-in-law kicked me to the side, and the remote control was kicked under the sofa. I blushed with anger and pushed my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law fell to the ground and trembled with anger. She cried and made a fuss. "My daughter-in-law beat someone. I don't want this kind of woman. Get out of our old Wang's house." I ignored her and pressed against the ground to find the remote control under the sofa. The moment my fingertips touched the remote control, I was overjoyed. My father-in-law was not quiet when he saw this situation. He caught up with me and kicked me in the stomach. I rolled on the ground in pain and rushed to the kitchen to pick up the rolling stick. My mother-in-law thought I was going to hit her. She was so scared that she got up and hid behind my father-in-law. I raised my hand and smashed it at the air conditioner. While smashing, I shouted, "Since you don't want to blow the air conditioner, I'll smash it, and you don't care." The mother-in-law beside her was helped up by her father-in-law, covered her chest and cried, "Don't smash it, don't smash it, you smash me to death." 3. I was carried away by anger. How could I listen to what she said? After smashing the air conditioner, I put down the stick and began to look for my wallet in the room to stay in the hotel for one night. I took the wallet on the table and opened it. It was empty, and only a photo of me and my baby was left. I suddenly thought that I haven't worked for the past few years. Where did the money come from? My premarital husband promised me that he would raise me for the rest of my life. But what about now? Now I don't even have a penny in my pocket. In the past, I either did laundry and cooked at home, or breastfeed my baby and washed the feet of my parents-in-law. I looked at the short sleeves that had been worn out of elasticity, and I couldn't bear to change, and the pair of slippers that were almost rotten by me, and tears flowed down unconsciously. The baby beside me was crying louder and louder. Looking at her red face, my heart suddenly softened. I picked up the baby and rushed out of the house. The mother-in-law scolded behind. "Bitch, if you leave, dare to come back and see if I won't beat you to death." I turned my head and pointed at her nose and said, "Don't worry, I won't come back in the future." Originally, I wanted to borrow some money from my neighbors to open a hotel. But in recent years, my ability to communicate with people has declined. Since I gave birth to Yuan, I found that I had mild postpartum depression. The extreme irritability and panic made me lose my composure. I stayed at home to wash and cook every day. I didn't go out to buy until there were few people on the street at night. Dishes. I smiled bitterly, and my heart was helpless and sad. Looking at this overcrowded street, I had no one to ask for help. I found I was about to go in the bank to rest for a while, but the child in my hand stopped crying and stopped moving. I patted the baby hard, but her little hand kept hanging in the air and shaking. Yuan, what's wrong to you?" I put my face on her hand and found that her hand was particularly hot. Yuan, don't scare him. Wake up quickly." I suddenly panicked and couldn't find my mobile phone all over my body. "It's broken. I must be in a hurry, and my mobile phone is still at home. The bank was right in front of me." I broke in and caught a well-dressed woman. "Can you call 120 for me?" My chin trembled. "Xiaorui, why are you here?" The woman held me up and was a little shocked. I looked up and saw clearly that she was my college classmate Lin Shi. "Don't worry, I've already called, and the ambulance is coming soon." I choked and thanked her. I looked at her bright face. Compared with my face full of oil stains, my face has grown old spots in a few years. I stood there a little cramped, and my hands couldn't help clenching. My former confidence had disappeared at this moment. 4. The ambulance arrived soon, and Yuan was sent to the hospital. The doctor said that he needed to stay in the hospital for a few days because of the heat stroke caused by the high temperature. Lin Shi saw my concern and paid the hospitalization fee cheerfully. The husband and mother-in-law rushed over after knowing that the baby was hospitalized. In the hospital, the mother-in-law made a fuss and everyone came to watch. My mother-in-law stood in front of me, and the spit star sprayed on my face. "You shameless man, how dare you hit me? Isn't it a waste of money to be hospitalized with such a minor illness? I'll tell the doctor to refund the money," I said angrily. "Mom, Yuan has a heat stroke and must be hospitalized." "Xiaoxia, Mom is not in good health, so don't be angry with her. Besides, it's okay for children's hot spots. We didn't have air conditioning when we were young. Isn't we all doing well now?" the husband said while patting his mother-in-law's chest. I said desperately, "Li Zongyao, you're crazy. Yuan has heat stroke. How old is she? Do you know that this can kill her?" "Xiaoxia, how can it be so serious? Mom told me that you came to the hospital because you didn't let me turn on the air conditioner. Let's go to the hospital to refund the money first, and I'll turn on the air conditioner for you when I get home." Li Zongyao grabbed my arm and was ready to leave. I shook off his hand and scolded loudly. "I wonder who dares to let me go today. I won't refund the money, and I also want to live in the hospital." Recalling that the baby was frozen to death in the refrigerator in my previous life, my heart began to ache. Looking at the murderers in front of me, I couldn't wait to tear them to pieces. "You damn woman, why are you talking to my son? I'm poor and pretentious, and my stomach doesn't fight at all, so I don't even have to hold my grandson." She pointed at my forehead with her finger and said angrily. When everyone heard this, they fought for me one after another. "What kind of era is this? You old lady still value sons over daughters." "Yes, your daughter-in-law is an honest woman at first glance. How can she bully honest people?" Seeing this, Lin Shi also pointed to his mother-in-law and said, "Auntie, dogs will bite people when they are in a hurry. Don't bully honest people." I gasped, gritted my back teeth, and turned back to the ward. I took out a sharp pair of scissors from the drawer. Holding the handle of the knife in his hand, he rushed out of the ward. Seeing this, the mother-in-law shouted and hid behind the crowd and couldn't help cursing. "You crazy man, if you dare to kill me, my son will beat you to death." I was already carried away by hatred, and my mother-in-law's words aroused my anger even more. My face was ferocious and I struggled to spit out a few words. "Just wait for death today." The people on the side also came to persuade me to calm down. Li Zongyao came forward and hugged my waist. I waved the scissors in my hand and stabbed him in the arm, bleeding. Looking at the flowing blood, I suddenly woke up and dropped the bloody scissors in my hand. I'm a policeman. I received a report that someone is here preparing to murder with scissors. Several policemen squeezed in from the crowd. I was stunned, but I glanced at my mother-in-law who was smiling. It seems that she reported the case correctly. I feel happy in my heart. Since my mother-in-law has reported the case, I have nothing to worry about. This time, I must make her suffer to death. 5. Our family was taken into the situation, and I behaved extremely calmly in the face of the police. Officer, this crazy woman is going to cut me with a knife. You arrest her quickly. The mother-in-law hid behind the police and squeezed out a few folds on her face. We will investigate it clearly by ourselves. The policeman took away his mother-in-law's hand and said solemnly, I didn't wait for the police to speak, and took the initiative to admit all the actions just now. If I should be fined, I would be fined, and if I should be detained, I would be detained. But I only have one request, which is a divorce. When the mother-in-law heard this, she was overjoyed, and the corners of her mouth couldn't stop rising. Lee, get a divorce quickly, and my son can find a better one. My mother-in-law's eyes turned, as if she thought of something, and hurriedly added, after divorce we won't raise Yuan Yuan. Yuan Yuan belongs to you. Otherwise how can my son find a wife with a burden? And how can he give birth to a big fat boy for me? Mom, what are you talking about? I won't divorce. The person I love is Xia Rui. Li Zongyao pulled his mother-in-law's sleeve and signaled to me with his eyes. Rui apologized to my mother. It's over. Will you be obedient? I snorted coldly and went up to slap Li Zongyao twice, which made my hand hurt. You son of a bitch, how dare you hit my son? My mother-in-law picked up the chair next to me and was about to smash it on the head. I shouted, causing everyone to watch. My mother-in-law beats my daughter-in-law. It's amazing. I shouted while pretending to wipe the tears from the corners of my eyes. Seeing that the situation was wrong, the mother-in-law quickly put down the chair in her hand. My heart is dark, mother-in-law. I also learned your move. 6. I have a tough attitude and am determined to divorce. Rui, I have all my certificates at home, and I need certificates for divorce. Li Zongyao said shamelessly. I brought it to you. The household registration book and marriage certificate are all in my bag. When my mother-in-law was about to reach out, she was stopped by Li Zongyao and shook her head at her. I'll go back to get the certificate. Li Zongyao smiled at me and pulled his mother-in-law away. I waited in the police station to see what tricks they wanted to do. They came back in less than 10 minutes. I reached out for the certificate, but my mother-in-law pushed my hand back with a smile. Xiaoxia, it was my fault before. You and Zongyao live a good life. I won't get in your affairs anymore. I watched my mother-in-law's attitude change 180 degrees. I pointed to her head and said suspiciously, Mom, is your brain okay? Xiaoxia, Mom will treat you as her own daughter in the future. Can we separate this marriage? The people on the side also adhered to the idea that it would be better to demolish a temple than to destroy a marriage, and persuaded me one after another. This old woman's attitude really puzzled me a little, but I want to see what other tricks she has. I smiled unkindly and said, Okay, I'll listen to my mother. 7. I took my daughter home and went to bed early. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I suddenly heard someone talking outside the house. I quietly opened a crack of the door and watched my mother-in-law and Li Zongyao say something. Li Zongyao took out an insurance policy from his bag. He looked around and saw that no one noticed him. He said mysteriously to his mother-in-law, Mom, look, this is the insurance I secretly bought for that woman. If we divorce now, we won't get a penny. A trace of cruelty flashed in Li Zong's dazzling god. He narrowed his eyes and gritted his teeth and said, Women who are disobedient are damned. Oh my good son, you didn't let my mother down. The mother-in-law hugged Li Zongyao and kissed him. Li Zongyao took his mother-in-law's hand and opened his eyes. Mom, I only love you in my life. Hearing this, I felt sick. It's not as simple as Ma Baonan. It's a mother fetish. Previously, Li Zongyao massaged his mother's feet and bathed his mother. I only regarded Li Zongyao as filial to his mother. But once I saw my mother-in-law and Li Zongyao sleeping on the wedding bed with my own eyes, their faces were red, as if they had just finished drinking. I was so angry that I ran over to question Li Zongyao. He wrote lightly, What's the big deal for Mom to sleep with her son? You should eat my mother's jealousy. In the past, I only thought I was too sensitive, but now I can be sure that this guy does have maternal fetish. 8. When I got up early the next morning, I was going to take Yuan Yuan away, but he was stopped by Li Zongyao. Rui, in order to treat you well, how about I take our family out to play? The mother-in-law said, Yes, Xiaoxia, you have worked so hard, you should relax. I didn't dare to go. Last night, I learned that Li Zongyao, a dog, bought me a huge amount of insurance. He could do anything to get compensation, I don't know if I can come back this time. I looked at Li Zong's dazzling and fierce light, and I was a little afraid. I looked at Yuan Yuan next to me and said, I won't go because Yuan Yuan hasn't recovered yet. You guys go. But Li Zongyao didn't seem to want to let me go. He gave his mother-in-law a look. The mother-in-law immediately came forward and said, Xiaoxia, I'll send Yuan Yuan to my mother's house later. Our family hasn't been out for a long time. Yes, let's go out for a walk and see the world. The father-in-law also said beside him. I couldn't rely except them, so I had to agree. I took Yuan Yuan into the room and changed Yuan Yuan into a pocketed dress. I wrote on the note, Mom, if I haven't heard from you for more than 24 hours, call the police immediately. I folded the note and put it in Yuan Yuan's pocket. An uneasiness surged into my heart, and I forced myself to calm down until I saw that there were only a few sleeping pills left at the head of the bed. In my previous life, after I found that my baby was frozen to death, I had a dead heart and bought a bottle of sleeping pills to commit suicide. But my neighbors found out and saved me. Now that I think about it, I'm so stupid that I'm going to pull their whole family down to put their backs. I crushed the sleeping pills into powder and poured them into the water and brought them to my parents-in-law. Mom and Dad, you must be a little tired of sending Yuan Yuan. Come and drink some water. My parents-in-law blindly praised me as a good daughter-in-law of the Gu family and knew how to be filial. It's ridiculous. For the rest of my life, I will treat you wholeheartedly, but in exchange for your bad words, you even put me and the baby into a desperate situation at all costs. This time I gave them enough medicine, so wait for me to torture you well. Xiaoxia, what's wrong with the taste of this water? My mother-in-law frowned and asked me after drinking, but now it's too late. The water in the bowl has been drunk by her. And I also smiled after a long time. This time, the amount is enough for them to sleep to death. Maybe the weather is hot and the water is too cold, so you feel that the smell is wrong. I said simply perfunctorily, Husband, I'm tired of driving later. Let's have some drinks. By the way, I handed him another functional drink. I added a little medicine to the drink, but the amount of medicine is not large. I calculated that it would take effect in about an hour and a half. At that time, we could just arrive at the rest area. Honey, you are so virtuous. Li Zongyao pouted and was about to kiss me. I looked at his greasy face, and my stomach surged. I endured the nausea and stood there in a daze. 9. We are about to leave. I chose the safest seat, the right back seat of the car. On the road, my parents-in-law were sweating profusely, and their eyes were a little dazed. I guess the medicine worked. How about turning on the air conditioner? I suggest. Li Zongyao quickly turned on the air conditioner in the car, but he couldn't turn it on several times. I laughed. I had already blocked the air outlet of the air conditioner before they got on the bus. Aren't you reluctant to blow the air conditioner? Then don't brag, everyone. The weather outside is getting hotter and hotter, and the temperature in the car is really hot. It may be hot to death in the next second. I quietly picked up the thermos in my bag, took out a piece of ice from the cup, and put it in my mouth before I calmed down. Son, stop in the service area ahead and let's have a rest for a while. The mother-in-law pinched the clothes on her chest and shook slightly. She was sweating profusely, and her face was a little red and purple. It seemed that she was really going to die. Well, I'm just a little tired. I'll stop in the service area to rest for a while. Li Zongyao agreed. After a while, the car drove to the service area, and the mother-in-law got out of the car and sat down on the stairs panting. I knew that the temperature would get higher and higher on the highway, so I filled a glass of ice in the service area in case of emergency. After a while, I heard my mother-in-law shouting and cursing from the studio next to me. What's wrong with the air conditioner for a while? We paid in the service area. The mother-in-law cursed loudly, and the staff standing next to her was not used to her. Auntie, this is the staff lounge. If you mess around like this again, we will call the police. When my mother-in-law heard this, her face turned green, and she slept on the floor. The wrinkled hands pretended to wipe the tears on his face. You are not good people. Even I, an old lady, bully you. If you have the ability, you can call the police. The staff standing aside picked up their mobile phones and prepared to call the police. My mother-in-law's sprinkling nature has not changed at all. Li Zongyao suddenly felt bad. He grabbed his mother-in-law on the ground and whispered something. The mother-in-law was a little flustered when she heard it, and she said, Yes, if the police come, we won't be able to do anything. As she said, my mother-in-law looked at me sinisterly. They apologized to the staff with a smile and ran back to the car. 10. Mother-in-law, let's go. I turned around and smiled at her. Xiaoxia, this is unlucky. You have to start, not on the road. My mother-in-law was a little annoyed. I nodded with a smile and supported her with my hands. I'm right. I'm on the road. It's your way this time. Xiaoxia, you drive. I don't know what's going on. My head is dizzy, and I'm not energetic. Li Zhongyao's legs trembled a little, and he couldn't even walk. It seemed that the medicine I gave him took effect, and the three of them fainted as soon as they got on the car. I sat in the driver's seat, and there seemed to be something under my feet. I looked down and suddenly felt a chill in my back. There is a sharp knife and a sack in the car, and there is also a bundle of rope in the sack. I'm sure I'm right. Li Zhongyao can't resist the temptation of huge insurance. I was worried that I couldn't find the right thing to tie them up. Now it's okay. They prepared it for me in advance. I tied their legs and feet tightly, and glued their mouths with transparent glue. I continued to drive to my destination. It was almost noon. The sun was shining on the roof of the car. The temperature in the car soared, and it was not ventilated at all. I opened the car window, and the sunlight shone in and shook my eyes. Sweat had flowed into my eyes. No matter how much I wiped them, I couldn't wipe them clean. My vision was so blurred that I couldn't see the road ahead. I suddenly brake halfway, and planned to take a bite of ice to slow down. The moment I put the ice in my mouth, I felt like I had fallen into the water. I looked at the three people lying in the car, and their faces turned a little blue, and the tape on their mouths was full of gasp. No, if it goes on like this, they will die before they reach the destination. I tore off the tape on their mouths, and spilled a few drops of water on their faces. They reacted in an instant, squirming like 3 insects. It was really disgusting. I glanced at my watch, and it was almost too late. I had to send them to the mountain before they woke up. There were few people there, which was the most suitable for me to do. I made a simple ice pack on my head to cool down to prevent heatstroke. When the car reached the mountain, it was the strongest time of the sun, and I pulled the three of them out of the car. 11. A basin of cold water poured on their heads, and they suddenly woke up and looked around. Crazy woman, where is this? Why are you tying us up? Li Zhongyao still wants to break free from the rope, but the twine was stained with some water by me, and even if it was used to suck milk, it could not be untied. Zhongyao, didn't you prepare this rope sack and this dagger for me? When Li Zhongyao heard this, the panic in his eyes was about to overflow. That I took off his shoes and stroked his feet gently with the dagger, and the blood gushed out. Looking at such a sharp knife, I couldn't help laughing. You're so cruel. We've been husband and wife for almost 10 years. Now your family tricked me here to kill people. Before he could explain, I continued to stab him in the foot with a knife. He cursed in pain. Damn woman, what are you going to do? I picked up his hair and whispered to his ear. Zhongyao, there are few people around here. If I step on the accelerator now, and leave your family in this wilderness, do you think you will die of heat? It's hot in the mountains, not to mention the high mountain. There is not even a shady place. It's noon again, and the sun is even hotter. Isn't it normal for people to die in the sun? What do you want to do? Li Zhongyao finally calmed down, he said tentatively. Don't you want to do anything? I just want to see if the 42-degree weather is really hot to death. I put my dagger against his neck and said, Bitch woman, you don't have to die. Our family is so kind to you. And you still want to take revenge on us. The mother-in-law shook her body desperately and scolded loudly. I pretended not to hear it, but drew a few times on her head with a knife, and a strand of hair fell down. She found that something was wrong and suddenly changed her face. Xiaoxia, we have something to discuss. We are a family. She reluctantly squeezed out a smile and said to me, Who is with you? Yuan was so hot that he almost shocked. Do you know? Damn old woman. You are the most damned. My hands trembled with anger, and the knife suddenly fell from my hand, and cut the old woman's thigh. The old lady was in pain and screamed. I was afraid of being found out, so I took Li Zhongyao's shoes and stuffed them into her mouth. Looking at their miserable situation, the anger in my heart suddenly subsided a lot. I grabbed the old lady's collar and threw her on the ground. Lick it for me, lick the blood on his feet, and I'll let you go. The old lady's body was a little weak, her lips turned white, and a little sweat appeared on her forehead from time to time, but she didn't dare to complain for the sake of her life. She knelt on the ground, bent down and licked the blood on the soles of Li Zhongyao's feet little by little. I leaned on the big tree next to me and watched the scene in front of me tirelessly. 12. Dead woman. Give me something that doesn't even deserve to carry my shoes, Ba. The old man beside him scolded. I almost forgot about you, the old man. You don't know that Li Zhongyao is not your own son. The old man's face was full of shock when he heard what I said. The next second, he jumped like thunder and tried to get up. I kicked him back again, and said to him with an expressionless face, You don't know yet. You can't do it at all. Bitch, you talk nonsense to me again. The twine made a red mark on his neck, and his breathing became a little difficult. If you don't believe it, look at how much your son looks like you. The old man was a little unbelievable. He glanced over, and saw the old lady's guilty eyes. Old man, don't believe what this madman said. How can Zhongyao not be your son? Shut up to me. Is Li Zongyao my son or not? The old man roared. It's up to this cent, so I'll tell you the truth. You really can't do it, but I want to pass on to your old Li family. You can't blame me for this. The old lady explained while wiping her tears. Bitch, if you dare to sow other people's seeds, I won't beat you to death. The old man trembled with anger, and got up, and was ready to kick the old lady. The old lady was so scared that she quickly turned over and dodged. The old man fell straight to the ground without moving. I ran over and looked at his blue face, and the blue veins on his neck slowly disappeared. He can't breathe. He's dead. I said lightly. Dead? Why did you die? The old lady looked a little flustered, and her spirit began to become abnormal. I'm so angry with you. It's all you, a madman who harmed our family. I won't let you go even if I'm a ghost. And I won't let you go if I'm a ghost. The old lady kept repeating this sentence, probably because she was a little crazy because of the scene just now. 13. I came back to my senses, and was about to dispose of the old man's body. Suddenly the mobile phone rang. It was a strange number. Hello, hello. Hello. I said several times in a row, and then the other side slowly made a sound. Xiaorui, it's me. Linshi. The indifferent tone of the other party made me a little suspicious. Yuan is in my hand now, and she is holding a crab and gnawing it. Linshi, Yuan is allergic to seafood. What on earth do you want to do? My voice is trembling when I speak. I know she is allergic, but I just want her to die. The other party's cold and playful tone made me wonder whether she was Linshi who helped me that day. Do you know? Only when Yuan dies will Zongyao be with me. The other party's voice gradually lowered until I couldn't hear it. I suddenly felt that there was a grassland above my head, but now I can't control so much. I said to her in an almost pleading tone. Linshi, if Yuan is seriously allergic to seafood, you will die. You come to me for everything, even if I beg you. My heart is about to break when I hear Yuan's cry on the other end of the phone. As a mother, I can't hear my child's cry the most. Linshi, calm down and tell me what you want. I want you to die. She suddenly raised the volume. I couldn't cry, my head buzzed, and it was dark in front of me. What? Are you afraid? Either you die or your child dies. Linshi's voice gradually became a little crazy, sometimes high and sometimes low. Yes, I promise you, but you must not hurt Yuan. Linshi seemed a little surprised to hear this. She couldn't believe that I could give my life for my child. 14. I hung up the phone and looked at the dying Li Zongyao beside me. An idea come to my mind. I groped out 2 mobile phones from his clothes, one for daily use, and the other for him and Linshi to communicate privately. That I looked at the blatant chat records between him and Linshi, and their attempts to jointly get rid of me, to get a high amount of compensation, and my heart suddenly died. I found Linshi's contact information on Li Zongyao's mobile phone, and sent a text message in his tone. Baby, that woman has wiped her neck and committed suicide. We will get compensation soon. I waited for a long time, but the other party didn't reply to the message, but called directly. I won't be found out. I quickly picked up the dagger on the ground, and hit Li Zongyao's neck to ask him to answer the phone. He stared and was very scared, and his neck shrank back in again. You should know how to say it. I whispered in his ear. You'd better not play tricks on me. I gritted my teeth and said fiercely. He couldn't stop shaking and pretended to be calm and said to the other end of the phone. Baby, what's wrong? Is that woman really dead? Yes, we will be together soon. I didn't expect that she would commit suicide for the sake of her child. Linshi seemed a little incredible, and then said, It's still the same time and place at night. I snatched my mobile phone and hung up the phone. I bit my lip and looked at Li Zongyao slanted. He was so scared that he said it all at once. At 8 o'clock in the evening, under the stone bridge cave. Will Yuan come? Yes. I smiled with satisfaction, and a bold idea came to my mind. I took off Li Zongyao's clothes and shoes and changed into myself. He hid naked behind the tree, and didn't dare to struggle at all. 15. I stopped them and drove down the mountain alone, and the sound of them crying and howling came to my ears. Damn woman, you don't want to die. The car is driving faster and faster, and the noise is getting quieter and smaller. I didn't dare to take a breath. I squatted under the stone bridge cave in advance. I hid behind a stone until 8 p.m., when a familiar figure came from a distance. It's Linshi. She is wearing a red skirt and red lipstick, which is not much different from the first time I saw her. I was still holding Yuan in my hand. After not seeing Yuan for a long time, I suddenly made a sound with excitement. The figure suddenly stopped, and began to retreat slowly. It's broken. She won't find out, will it? At this moment, I didn't dare to gasp and slowly came out from behind the stone. Linshi recognized me as Li Zongyao with his clothes and shoes, and threw Yuan in his hand and rushed to me. Yuan Yuan was hurt by the fall, and her cry tore my heart and lungs, but now I must calm down. I lowered the brim of my hat for fear of being recognized by Lin Shi. There was no light under the stone bridge. She hugged me and spoiled me. When I heard her deliberately pretending to be sobbing, I almost vomited. I didn't dare to speak, for fear of being found out by her, so I kept stroking her head. But she seemed to find something. She frowned and said to me suspiciously, "Zongyao, why don't you say anything?" She sniffed at me, took a few steps back, and said vigilantly, "And you don't smell right. Who the hell are you?" She was about to take off the hat on my head. I quickly ran in the direction of Yuan Yuan, and picked her up. In the dark night, Yuan Yuan was scared and kept crying. I suddenly felt cold behind me. Turning around, Lin Shi was stabbing Yuan Yuan in my arms with a sharp knife. I didn't have time to react, and turned around suddenly. The knife cut my arm. The sticky blood remained on my arm, and a bloody smell came to my nose. 16. Fear swept through my whole body. But as soon as I heard the baby's cry, the uncontrollable anger in my heart made me rush forward and grab her wrist. The weakness of my body made me have no room for resistance. In this way, the sharp knife in her hand stabbed my chest. In despair, I tried my best to pull out the knife on my body and stab her fiercely. Lin Shi fell to the ground in pain. The blood in my mouth couldn't stop flowing out, blurring my vision. I pressed Lin Shi on the ground with my last breath. "Yuan Yuan, MOM can only help you here." I looked at Yuan Yuan. A second before I closed my eyes, a group of people wearing hats appeared in front of me, and my mother was still standing beside them. It must be that note. It was the note I put in Yuan Yuan's pocket that my mother saw. Saved, Yuan Yuan saved. The moment before my body was conscious, I heard my mother's heartbreaking cry, the sound of police sirens, and the sound of ambulances. My head buzzed. I died again, but this time I have no regrets, but I feel sorry for my mother. Point 17. I don't know how long it took, but when I opened my eyes again, there was a bright light in front of me, and I was sitting on a bench in the park. I was reborn again, but this time I was wearing a floral skirt and a pair of sheepskin shoes. And a young woman was sitting next to me. "Who are you?" I looked up at the loving woman in front of me. "I'm your mother." She gently stroked my face with her hand. "Are you Xiaomei?" She scratched my nose and said to me with a smile on her face, "Silly child. I'm Li Yuan, and Xiaomei is my grandma." I couldn't take my eyes off her. Her eyebrows were indeed very similar to Yuan Yuan's. I suddenly threw myself into her arms, and didn't want to let go for a moment. This time, I will be Yuan Yuan's daughter. She picked me up, just like I hugged her when I was a child. Let's go. Let's go to see Grandma together." "Good," I said with a smile. At this moment I hugged her tighter. I really wanted to tell her, "Mom didn't leave. Mom has been with you."